he's not. This is going to be a very exciting game one. I mean, we've seen a lot of Mistweaver monks. We've seen a lot of deep dampening games of kind of the same old for these past 3 weeks. But this series is going to be two very unique compositions going head to head in game one.
All right, it's going to be a good way to start the day. You already heard it from Sid. We got some unique compositions, and the gates are about to open.
Yeah, Golden Guardian's going to be leading with the RLS. WizK on that Destruction Warlock. He's really proven that he is able to step up to the plate and make some plays on that class, going toe-to-toe with some of the best Destruction Warlocks in North America. For RSG, it is going to be, their patented Feral Destruction Holy Paladin. This is a composition we don't see too often, but it's got a lot of burst potential, a lot of crowd control, and a lot of durability as well. I think the Ron Paul on that Paladin, especially if he's playing Inevitable Truth, is going to have a lot of cooldowns he can cycle through to really help bolster their defense against Peekaboo.
All right. Let's see how they want to start this off. Peekaboo leads with a blind on the healer, ramping up damage onto Nazam. WizK looking to build up, still not at a point where he can find any Chaos Bolts. Nazam intervening with the double Mortal Coil. Immediately removed though. Now Chaos Bolts lobbed out for WizK. Sap still on the Ron Paul. As we see the Feral Druid charging over to WizK, trying to disrupt him, but not able to stop him in time. One Chaos Bolt already connects. Looking for a second. The Ron Paul ducks into the Smoke Bomb, trying to clutch out some heals. Holding on to that Avenging Wrath as long as possible. Forced to trade it for the Dark Soul of WizK, but more than a fair trade for him. Nazam now looking to counter-engage, finding Chaos Bolts over onto WizK. Down to half. Absterge repositioning, trying to get out of range of the interrupts potentially. Nazam with a nice Nether Ward, reflecting a Chaos Bolt back. Both teams taking a moment of pause. Nice Cyclone onto Peekaboo's lingering Psychic Shell there by the Feral. Switching back onto WizK. This could be a game of manas, or potentially a swap. We see a swap over to Peekaboo. A full bash down to half. Absterge readjusting to the target switch from RSG. Now we see the Feral Druid going back onto WizK. Swaps to the Feral and swaps to the Rogues. I definitely see this as a main win condition, as it looks like both of them are running Gushing Wounds.
Yep, that is correct, Sid. Both the Feral and the Rogue are full out Gushing Wounds, full out offense, and both Warlocks are stacking that versatile amp. You're going to see Peekaboo now kicking that Chaos Bolt. Once again, the Feral Druid here looking for some bleeds onto Peekaboo. And that's what both of the Peekaboo and the Druid, they both want to kind of bleed each other up, get the other person kind of low to like maybe 80% or so, and then go for maybe a surprise attack with a Kidney into a Chaos Bolt or a Maim Stun into a Chaos Bolt. If they can do that, I think that could be a potential win condition. Counter spell secured on the Ron Paul. Let's see what they can do with it. Peekaboo dropping the Kidney Shot. No Smoke Bomb available. No blind available for a couple more seconds. Blessing of Protection actually being traded out there. That wasn't Peekaboo's Vendetta as well. So pretty good here for the Golden Guardians. Getting slightly ahead, full blind coming out on the Ron Paul. Let's see if they can force out the Trinket. Peekaboo vanishing here early to try to get the sap. He does land it, and then he gets maimed here actually. So I don't think the Ron Paul is going to trinket it. In fact, Peekaboo in a little bit of trouble there, steps back out into the open. The Ron Paul going to throw out some big holy lights, but the Feral Druid is also kind of taking a decent amount of damage here. Decent pressure for the Golden Guardians. They have full mana as well. Looking like they are slightly ahead here, Ben.
I mean, definitely. That's one thing Peekaboo really excels at, is creating multiple pressure points for his team. He's the master of getting damage out on multiple targets and basically surprising attacking people throughout the match, and it works really well here. Nazem taking a huge hit in that Kidney Shot. Ron Paul uses a sacrifice to keep him alive, but you can start seeing that rot pressure I'm talking about. Golden Guardians definitely have a massive pressure advantage right now. Ron Paul struggling to stabilize his team, and will use the Divine Favor and get some big heals out, but Peekaboo switching his attention now to the Ron Paul. Nice Hammer of Justice to slow him down. They're actually going after Peekaboo, might be able to take him down. He's caught into a bash, he's behind the pillar. Does of course have a lot of defense, he's not going to overreact. The lingering Psychic Shell, more than enough, but I like the fact that RSG is willing to punish Peekaboo when he's making those aggressive plays.
Well, they got his Hellstone, so he might not be able to get another charge of that Hellstone in the fight if he makes the mistake of overextending like that again. He could definitely go down. They're going after Nazem. They purge off the Thorns, and both teams are trying to split their damage onto two targets, but Peekaboo on the Assassination Rogue has the advantage of Wound Poison to reduce healing on both of those targets, whereas the Feral Druid does not have that. So I feel like if this game continues where it's just a split damage fight, the Rogue Warlock is inevitably going to win this matchup. The Destro Warlock Feral Holy Paladin has the advantage of crowd control, but they're not really utilizing it. They're just going for a damage war out in the midfield, and continuously falling behind. Ron Paul popping the Avenging Wrath to get his team back up to full. He's blinded on it. Is he going to choose to sit it? He has Avenging Wrath. He's losing a lot of healing output to sit this full blind. They try and stop the sap, but Peekaboo uses his Gliders Medallion to secure it, making sure that Avenging Wrath gets basically no value. I don't know how. I'm not a fan of sitting this full blind. Now Nazem very low on health. Ron Paul ducks in, sacrifices, redirects the damage to himself to stabilize. Double Mortal Coil stalls the damage. And now a Full Fear has finally landed onto Absturge. Can they set up any damage with it? It doesn't look like it. And mana is at least somewhat evening out for the teams here as dampening begins. Big swap to Peekaboo,
Whoa.
catching him out in midfield. Man, if anything in that chain crit, I feel like Peekaboo would have just been out of this. So RSG showing signs of life. Peekaboo is definitely a vulnerability for the Golden Guardians.
I really like Absturge keeping his cool in that situation, only using the Ascendance. A lot of the time you'll see a Shaman overlap or just panic Spirit Link. You always want to save your Trinket and your Spirit Link at the same time. So you can Trinket out of a crowd control and drop that Spirit Link. And even if you get re-crowd controlled, you're going to have that big health boost, and also it's going to be redirecting damage to you. So the crowd control will be breaking. So Absturge going to be able to hold on to that, only trading out the Ascendance. Not too much of an issue here, but that was a close call. Knows him now. Big Chaos Bolt here potential. It's going to land into the Grounding Totem here. He's looking to potentially get it onto Absturge. This one's going to go onto Whiskey, gets reflected, and he actually gets a bolt off himself there. Whiskey showing some prowess here on that Destro Warlock. Peekaboo now once again getting Hammer of Justice behind the pillar, but Absturge overextending his positioning to help out his rogue there so he can stay aggressive. Nozem now has the Thorns, so Peekaboo looking to swap to perhaps the Feral or maybe even get some bleed pressure onto the Ron Paul. And I like what the Golden Guardians are doing here. Absturge has crossed the map, and now it's going to allow them to actually push him behind the pillar and start getting big cleave pressure. The Ron Paul actually might have to use his Divine Shield here. Big damage connecting from
Peekaboo.
Whiskey. If they have a Garrote Silence, anything, it could be the game. Absturge dropping his Spirit Link, and the Ron Paul going down without his bubble in that exchange as well. Very greedy there with his cooldowns.
Yeah, I need to see the last few moments of that game. There was a moment where Peekaboo almost got completely obliterated. They managed to almost take him out with a big burst. Absurge backed him up, and then what even hit Ron Paul at the end? Battlemaster's Fall or something? Like, I didn't see a Chaos Bolt.
Sure.
I'm gonna watch. We're watching the
It was a
YouTube
really
game.
slow death, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that was crazy. Whiskey got a couple Chaos Bolts. It was scary for Ron Paul. I was kind of surprised to see him not trade out his Divine Shield, but then he ultimately just fell. I mean,
Could
I'm
be
watching now.
possible he tried like using an aggressive global to kill Peekaboo with where he was before the link went down. That's the only thing I can see, and I mean, I'm watching the stream too to get it because we can watch it as time travelers. But it was definitely a bit of a throw, I think, from the Ron Paul right there at the end.
First game of the day, and already you're hearing everybody on the desk saying that they want to watch back those final few moments. And Zico, Sid just said it. And I'm going to ask you right now if you think that is the case. Do you think that this was a little bit of a throw in the final moments of our first blind pick of the day?
Well, I want to say that it looked like Golden Guardians were winning, but there was also a lot of times where Peekaboo could have just gotten, destroyed behind the pillar. So it is definitely a throw. Could have gone either way, but at the end there, Ron Paul got kidneyed, and then I saw Chaos Bolt go out after the kidney, and I assumed, okay, he's gonna bubble. Then Peekaboo almost went down there in a main stun as well. Absturge dropped his Spirit Link, and it was a dress.
It was a Reap dressed,
actually.
actually. Reap dressed by Peekaboo just took him from like 25 to 0. I mean, I feel like he had greeted it so.
Just bubbled.
He should have, yeah, but he had greeted it so far. He wanted to try to get away with it, but Peekaboo definitely punishing him there.
So with what we saw at the
kidding me,
beginning,
Imo.
though, when you talk about the beginning of the game, Zico, you already started to allude to it, but Sid, how do you think that this matchup could play out in the future if you're not able to finish the way that you actually did if you are the Golden Guardians in game number 2 or the future game, Sid?
I mean, they have a win condition killing Peekaboo. I think that's obvious, but it seems like a really tough matchup overall. If they don't catch him in a swap, then they don't really have a win condition the way that they're playing it, where they're just doing damage, attacking, and they're kind of hoping Peekaboo overextends. If Peekaboo never overextends, I feel like they could just win just attacking the Feral and attacking the Destro. They don't even really need to even risk going after the Paladin. But when they do go for the Paladin, they can close the game faster. It's just every time I saw that Peekaboo targeted the Paladin, Peekaboo had to use pretty much a big cooldown every time. So I guess if they're ready to trade, it's fine. And as long as they have a trade, they can go after him. Usually when you see Destro, Feral, Paladin on the ladder, it's really, I shouldn't even say the comp, it's like it's this team is the only team that plays it. They play Repentance, and they play like really heavy crowd control, and they'll get on top of the other healer, and just, you can't stop Chaos Bolt, Fear, Repentance, and Cyclone all at the same time. They didn't play like that, and I'm wondering if it's because they'll just lose outright if they try. But that is an option that they didn't really even try and utilize in game one.
Then we see everything get locked in the draft almost instantly here for the Golden Guardians and RSG as they do head into Tiger's Peak now for this second game. Sid starts to talk about some strategy changes that he might want to see for both sides. Is there anything that you're looking for when we do touch down on Tiger's Peak?
Well, honestly, I think Zico kind of hit the nail on the head when he said, there was lots of opportunities in the game for RSG. I feel like if that game had played out, there would have been even more opportunities. I mean, Peekaboo got low multiple times, playing as aggressive as he was. And if the Ron Paul had just used his bubble, that game could have easily gone, another 5 minutes, another 5 minutes of opportunities to take down Peekaboo and those all-in one-shots. So I think we're likely going to see very similar strategies going into the next game. We just need to see, obviously, those defensive cooldowns be rotated out to extend the game and give RSG more opportunities. Because it seems like in this straight Warlock race, Golden Guardians seems to come out ahead, but if Peekaboo is trying to get tons of pressure onto the Ron Paul, that's when they actually have opportunities to really take him down.
All right, Golden Guardians going to try to get on match point here. Keep in mind, this is an elimination series. Peekaboo might be on the chopping block after what we saw in game number 1, but also keep your eyes on the Ron Paul.
Yeah, I mean, RSG are a team that they could break the bubble and get into the top 8 if they have a good performance in the tournament. So this would be devastating for them to lose to the Golden Guardians overall, potentially miss the circuit stage of the competition later this year. They need to put it together here and find a game plan. Otherwise, they might lose out on that opportunity.
Yeah, and that's going to be big for the other teams still trying to make it through to that bubble, because RSG is one of those teams that definitely could climb the standings and knock some people out. So definitely right now, a lot of those teams like Unitas, like Turtle, the teams on the kind of edge, are extremely happy if RSG gets knocked out. Another thing is, I really wanted to see Ron Pong swap over to the Ineffable Truth blind build instead of the Short Hammer of Justice. I feel like the Short Hammer of Justice, when you're not running trying to hodge Absturge, you're not really going to get too much value out of it. But I guess he wants to have that stand for Peekaboo if he overextends Bind Pillar. Speaking of that, Absturge have to push in right there using his Vitality Conduit, trying to keep Peekaboo alive. Absturge actually could get Hammer of Justice right now. The Ron Paul could be looking for it. Absturge ready with his Grounding Totem. It's kind of a mind game between the two healers, and it looks like no one is going to land for any crowd control right now. Just standard pressure here. Knows I'm getting counterspelled. Whiskey getting counterspelled. One Chaos Bolt's going to go out. Absturge now in a full Hammer of Justice. Peekaboo could be in trouble here. They have the Fear. They do land a full Fear here. Peekaboo might need to use something. Cyclone coming out onto Whiskey. 3 versus 1. But Peekaboo realizing the situation, going to Kidney Shot the Feral Druid, and then go back behind the pillar line of sighting the Warlock. Absturge going to respond with that Ascendance, keep his team topped off with that Spirit Walker's Grace, immunity to interrupt, and now once again Golden Guardians are going to look to attack.
Yeah, Peekaboo still getting that damage rolling onto Nazem. Full Kidney Shot will be secured with a Fear onto Ron. Is there going to be enough damage? Smoke Bomb drops down. Peekaboo trying to create an opportunity, but it looks like Ron is going to be easily able to heal through that damage. Now Peekaboo in a stun. I don't think he's really in too much danger. The Earthen Wall Totem from Absurge, more than enough defense. Nice little counterspell there by WizK onto Ron, slowing down his healing a little bit. And both teams, at this point, relatively stable. It doesn't seem like there's too many vulnerabilities. Once again, RSG, they're going to be moving forward for an attempt here onto WizK. Hammer of Justice, but with no follow-up. That's actually a nice Cyclone there. And this is the one thing we do see Zeb do quite a bit, is get out those Cyclones, deny the heals from Absturge, but unless they get the crowd control on Absturge like we see right now, it's going to be way too easy for him to recover.
Nazem in danger here. The Ron Paul choosing to sit another blind. WizK being pressured as well. Unending resolve on both sides, but I'm not sure if the Ron Paul's going to get away with sitting so much of Peekaboo's crowd control. Both of his teammates are critically low. Their defenses are starting to crack. Barely in time getting the sacrifice up, and now they're swapping to the Ron Paul. The Golden Guardians are all over the place as we see Zev stabilize, cycloning Peekaboo, but WizK is still tearing in. Double Mortal Coil trying to ramp up his pressure. RSG need to stabilize and keep the momentum that they had just built onto WizK, but it's starting to slip away. Nazem is still behind. Full Fear onto the Ron Paul. His Avenging Wrath, is he going to get this Holy Light? Finds it. Now Garrote silenced by Peekaboo. Switching back over to Nazem, switching back over onto the Feral. Doesn't want to attack into Thorns here. And tax Absterge's mana any further. Big stun, Breath of Dying attempt here onto Peekaboo. Absterge moves in. Actually going into the Hammer of Justice there. Peekaboo pre-feints the Mortal Coil. I like this Hammer of Justice into Cyclone. That's what makes this composition good, is that there's so many crowd control effects that you need to interrupt that you can't stop all of them. I really think that Ron Paul should consider switching to Repentance in the next game. It would just be an extra 8 seconds of crowd control onto Absterge and then win with damage on Peekaboo. But in the meantime, the Ron Paul gets swapped to. Zev's moving over to try and assist him, but he's low on health as well. Ron Paul survives the kidney shot. The bash on Peekaboo did the work it needed to do. Now Peekaboo is just 1v2ing the Feral Druid and the Paladin over there. The Ron Paul's trying to run in for a Hammer of Justice. If they get a Cyclone off this Hammer of Justice, they may be able to get pressure, but they're too far behind. Peekaboo's damage is just too much right now for RSG.
Big push here on the Ron Paul. Full kidney shot. This could be the bubble. Similar situation to the last game.
Oh!
They can get done. Peekaboo though, getting destroyed there with the dressed trinket from the Feral Druid.
And yeah, I mean, that's what can happen. Peekaboo had basically everything up, but surprise attack from Zev with the Drustigath, the big ferocious bite, and that was more than enough to just clean it up. I mean, that's another one of those games, and that's what I'm talking about. RSG, if they can just continuously look for those opportunities on a Peekaboo, they can just explode them like that.
It's a different result, but a similar game in a lot of ways, and I'm kind of curious how you guys feel the rest of the series is going to play out after seeing these first 2 games now. It seems like we're going to have quite a few explosive finishes. Zico, do you think that we're going to keep seeing games end in a style like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what the Golden Guardians are doing that I don't agree with is that Absterge is pushing forward and playing on the same pillar as his team. I think you can only really do that if you're trying to go for the kill. But the problem for the Golden Guardians this time was that they were able to Hammer of Justice Absterge a lot of those times and get his trinket out of the way. So I don't know. I think if he just stays back in PvE heals, they just passively win. Like
okay, that's really interesting, because my question was going to be, going into this one, you guys had already said Peekaboo was very much going to be the target, and I was going to kind of ask, how do you mitigate knowing that he's the biggest target there? Super Tease, do you actually agree? Do you think it really is going to be on Sturge being back, and as Zico said, kind of just PvE heal, make sure that you're staying out of the range of Hodge?
I mean, right there, Absterge wasn't even crowd controlled. I mean, Zev killed Peekaboo like the same way that Peekaboo killed the Ron Paul game 1. He dressed Breath of Dying, executed him. So maybe tracking those cooldowns a little bit more closely, because the Drustigath is easily the #1 kill point for every team that's running it. So tracking that cooldown is very important. And then when it's available, if your team is 30% health or lower, there's a chance they die, and then just be ready. You've got to keep them out of that 30% range if the Drustigath is up.
Yeah.
Definitely, but you also got to keep in mind that Absterge is permanently in the Feral's kick range when he plays there. Whereas if he's back in the back, he can just spam heals. The only thing he has to worry about is spell lock, but if he's ever in a sticky situation, he can Spirit Walker's Grace or Grounding Totem.
As we do head to Ashman's, I want to ask Van, do you think there are any other possible win conditions that we could see, or do you think it's just one player is going to get dressed into Echoes as we actually enter Game 3?
Well, I mean, if they survive those one shot long enough, then it's going to be, a case of dampening, stacking so high that anything can happen, really. But I think that's the one thing both these teams need to look out for. Reaping Flames, Drustigath Trinket is a lot of burst damage, and if you're not, fully prepared, if you're just a little bit too low on health in those crit, you can get an unexpected kill. And I think Golden Guardians and RSG are both really, really good at finding those opportunities. So they just need to, basically it's going to come down to who avoids it better, and who maybe gets a little bit lucky with them critting, because if you do get crits, it literally can be 40-50% of your health just instantaneously.
Hot Rodman 93 in the chat said, "Live by the dressed, die by the dressed." And I don't think that there could be a more perfect slogan for what we might see here for the rest of this series. We have 2 games, different results, but it all relies on that so far for the win condition. You already heard from Zico some potential tweaks that we might want to see from the Golden Guardians as we enter this third game, really looking at Absurge. You heard some ideas from Supatis as well, but I want to talk about RSG. Is there any way that they can potentially keep themselves safe from those stressed opportunities, Zico?
Please, I want to see the Ron Paul play Blinding Light. If you're playing Ineffable Truth, it doesn't scale with Fist of Justice. So it's either his build is dead or his talent is dead. And I think the talent is dead because you can still rotate back your trinket and things like that. So I want to see, actually, did he swap to it? He did not. He's still playing that Fist of Justice, and I think that's just going to be a big, disadvantage. The Repentance is, it has such a short cooldown anyway that I don't really like it, plus you have to cast it. I think if you play Ineffable, you do what basically we saw from Chaz yesterday, just run in and blind on CD. Speaking of blinds, there's a blind sap right now happening on the Ron Paul. Big damage onto Nozem. I actually kind of want to see the Ron Paul trinket out of that. It broke somehow, and he does get that Blessing of Protection. He does get Purge, however, might still need to use the Sacrifice. Could go for Divine Favor, Holy Light. He has the wings up, but if he gets interrupted, it could be big as well. He's going for it, and he gets it. Now, I think RSG should stabilize, and Peekaboo might be the one on the back foot here, then.
I mean, definitely he's going to be taking a few Chaos Bolts, but nice grounding totem from Absurge, as well as the lingering Psychic Shell from Peekaboo. Peekaboo's going to be completely fine, and both teams have kind of stabilized at this point. Talk about mana for the healers, it really hasn't mattered at this point. It doesn't seem like that's going to be a win condition for either one of these teams, at least not with how quickly these games are going by. RSG right now, they do have some solid rot pressure. Idiot Feral's just going to be bouncing around multiple targets, bleeding everybody up, and in that way, Idiot Feral and Peekaboo, they have very similar roles in the match, just trying to create opportunities for their team, and with those opportunities, the Destruction Warlocks, both WizKid and Nazem, can try to find a target that's low and burst it down as fast as possible.
WizK is building for more damage this game. He's running the Vision of Perfection instead of the Conflict. Perhaps realizing Peekaboo's been the target time and time again, he can drop some defense for more offense. Curious to see if that works out for the Golden Guardians here. As we see the Feral Druid stunned up, trading the lingering Psychic Shell and then charging towards WizK. Ron Paul looking to try and reset his Hammer of Justice as soon as possible. Really want to see those Hammer of Justice into Cyclone crowd control change. There's the Hammer of Justice. Instant kick on the Feral Druid Cyclone by Peekaboo. He's not having any of that Cyclone business happening here onto Absturge. Both teams looking stable, waiting for each other's Dressing-Gas to come off cooldown. Breath of Dying player onto Peekaboo, but intercepted by WizK. Double Mortal Coil and a double Cap Totem into triple Infernal. Beautiful crowd control chain by the Golden Guardians. However, the Ron Paul has Avenging Wrath, and he can negate a lot of the pressure that it has built up. Good answer to that triple crowd control from the Ron Paul.
Beautiful deflection here. Absurge now in a Hammer of Justice. Playing on top of them again. Could get crowd control here. Infernal Stun comes out. Maybe a Fear. Absurge's going to duck away from it, but instead, he's going to get Cyclone. Trinket out of that. The Idiot Feral as well trинketing. Full blind onto Ron Paul. Can he get the sap? Peekaboo cannot find the sap. He's going to go for the cheap shot. Do they have a Fear? Do they have a Hex? Doesn't look like it. Absurge not going to be going for it. The Feral can still dispel it anyway, and I do believe the Feral is in Stun DR right now, so not going to be too much as a result of that, but WizK still doing decent pressure here, getting a nice Fear into Chaos Bolt combo. Ron Paul as well, kind of just dying to gushing wounds and bleeds. Has to go for a couple of heals now. Peekaboo actually missing his kick there, and Peekaboo actually in trouble right now in that name, Hodge, but this time Absturge pre-Vitala did the Hodge. Beautiful play right there, but I still don't agree with the positioning here. You see Absturge just getting in. If he didn't pre-Vitality right there, that would have been all of Peekaboo's defense, so it's a risky game that they're playing. It does give them more pressure, especially on the Holy Paladin, having to deal with more kicks and more purges, but I just feel like the trade-off isn't worth it. And as I say that, Absturge landing another win share right there.
Yeah, very nice interrupt. Peekaboo still, though, a little trouble. You can see him trading out the feint when he's at around 50% health. Doesn't want a repeat of game number 2, what we just saw, that Reaping Flames, as well as the Dressing-Gas. There's just so much burst. Now, Idiot Feral and Nazem caught into the Mortal Coil of WizK. Unfortunately, they weren't able to really capitalize on it that much, but you can see, look at how much pressure Golden Guardians has right now. All 3 members rotted down. Ron Paul definitely going to have to play some catch-up here, but with that Avenging Wrath, managing to top off everyone, really nicely done there. But he is burning through mana really quickly. I touched on mana at the beginning of this game, but it does seem like this is really taxing the playstyle of both these teams, how much just raw damage they're getting out. These healers are burning through their resources very quickly.
This kid's getting a lot of value out of that vision, but here we see Absterge stunned up. Peekaboo could be in trouble. Remember, he got erased from 40% health last time around. Absterge is still stun locked. There's the Drestigat drop. Absterge barely clutching in a heal. Now it's the Feral Druid on the back foot. Survival Instincts at 50% health. It seems like if you're at 50% health even or lower, you're at risk of dying to that Drestigath Reaping Flames combo. As the Feral Druid is still the target. The Ron Paul is rotted down. He needs 9 more seconds. Is he going to get it? Nope. Drestigath drops him. Peekaboo strikes back. Golden Guardians move to match point.
It very much has felt like a series of you show me your Drestigath and I'll show you mine. But the question that I do have moving forward, not really question, the thing that I do want to bring up is, we jumped right into the series. The series is absolutely flying by. It's been a fun one to watch and a great one to start off the day. But when you actually think about what's going on here, Zico, I do want to talk big picture because the Golden Guardians have done a fantastic job so far in the Cups to be able to be the second place point holder. But they are already facing elimination. So when we look at these other squads like RSG, I want to just start thinking about how close not only is this series, but the entire year really does seem to feel, not just in NA, but in EU.
Yeah, I mean, in general, so in EU, it looks like there is, about 8 teams that are just a little bit better than everybody else. And then within those 8 teams, there's also, tiers, I would say, with Wildcard and Method at the top and then going down from there. But in NA, I would say maybe there's even more than 8 good teams because the NA point standings are just completely wide open. And I think a reason for that is because just C9 has been soaking up so many points. And the same thing goes for the Golden Guardians. It's kind of similar in EU as well. You have 2 top teams just taking as many points as possible, and then that kind of starves everybody else of those points, and they have to, really fight. And these if you can play 6th instead of 8th can just make or break whether you qualify or not.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic when you have a team that's essentially a point sponge and then you have crazy things happening, right? Because you find yourself in a position where there are so many points occupied at the very top, and then you're not going to see any of them really trickle down. It's an interesting phenomenon to say the least, but now we are going to get a look at our draft. Blackbrook Hold is going to be the map coming into this one, and then we really haven't talked about maps that much because I think strategy has been the name of the series. Sometimes it's going to come down to the back and forth with the comps, sometimes it's going to come down to the back and forth with the maps, but this one really does just feel like a game that's coming down to those final moments. Who's able to get off that win condition that centers around the Drestigath. But with this map, I want to start talking about who really is favored on a map like this, as we do start to see a change away from somewhat more neutral maps.
I mean, that's a really good question. Who really is favored? It seems like most of these games are just the players, all 6 players, pick a pillar, and they just run around it. Try to avoid each other. For RSG, I mean, Ron Paul, he's trying to create space, get away from Peekaboo a little bit, get away from Absterge, basically dogpiling on top of him so he doesn't have to deal with, wind shears and purges and, it's super high value for the Golden Guardians getting Earthen Wall totem down. So I think for RSG, I think they want to play a little bit further away, but the thing is, like, both these teams are implementing extremely similar playstyles, right? We're seeing both Peekaboo and Idiot Feral just bounce around, create as much pressure as they can, get crowd control out. Then we have WizK and Nazem basically just hitting anything they can in the open, looking for big Chaos Bolts. If they can, consolidate their damage with their melee, then that's fantastic. And then for Ron Paul, he's just trying to, get away from Absterge, potentially even throwing a Hammer of Justice on him. Absterge is trying to push in. He's trying to get wind shears and purges. So I think it's actually really likely on this map we're going to see one room or just the center pillar be the focal point for basically the entire match.
All right, so maybe a little bit of focus on the pillar. You heard it from Ven. Now, Supatis, I do want to ask you, I know one of the things that was called out last time, a slight tweak that we saw, was off the essences. We saw the Visions of Perfection was ultimately implemented. Do you think that when we go to a map like this, there could be any changes that we actually do see in the loadouts? Do you think that we could see, whether it's essences, whether it is something on the gear, whether it's the corruptions, do you think that there are any tweaks, or do you think that they're going to be focusing on the same thing and, like Ven said, kind of just use the strategies that we've seen throughout the rest of this series?
Well, right now it looks like Peekaboo is the only target that can die on the Golden Guardians for RSG, so WizK changing for more damage makes a lot of sense. Whereas Nazem, I feel like he's not feeling too safe in the matchup, so he runs a bigger risk of dropping his Conflict and Strife, and it just gets so much value against a rogue, right? Like the time in the game where you're going to die is in a kidney shot, so I don't think that we'll see any changes past this point, but WizK making the adaptation for Vision of Perfection definitely paid off. I mean, the pressure was much higher, they almost had the Ron Paul out of mana, and they won with a lot more burst damage, so that change for WizK is paying off.
All right, well, we're already into this one. This could be the last game in the last cup before we head to the circuits for RSG. Golden Guardians trying to close it out here.
Yeah, see, again, full blind coming out onto the Ron Paul, kidney shot onto the Feral, gets Infernal stun on his trinket. Peekaboo not gonna be able to find the sap, maybe? No, he went for it, but couldn't get it there in time. Feral's gonna use his tank trinket from Zoth, and now the Warlock is going to be pressured here. Peekaboo trying to apply dots onto all targets. He can get some nice bleeds here onto the Ron Paul. It could be big. He gets a kidney shot onto the Warlock, trying to shut him down during that Infernal stun. And I think for now, RSG should recover, but not a bad opener for the Golden Guardians. Could have been even better, though, if they found that sap.
Yeah, definitely. Feral's going to be pushing forward, getting some damage rolling onto WizK. Gets interrupted. Maybe they have the burst to follow it up. Ascendance gets ripped out by Absurge, looking to just recover all this initial pressure. Another Infernal drops down. Big damage here by WizK, just rotting down the entire team. Ron Paul is really struggling. Divine Favor comes in, but a big attempt here onto Peekaboo as well. Spelllock on Absurge, now into a Hammer of Justice, and that's what can backfire for Absurge. If he pushes in and he looks for those wind shears, he can get caught into that crowd control. Really nice cycle in there by Idiot Feral, slowing down some of that healing from Absurge. Is there any follow-up? I mean, it's good control, but at the same time, RSG is just outright dead. Ron Paul now into a kidney shot using the Divine Shield, and he just cannot heal up his team. This is too much damage for him to handle.
No! He got smoke bombed on the Divine Favor. He had to use it on himself there. Now his whole team is just rotting down. He doesn't have Avenging Wrath for 18 more seconds at this point. He's praying for Ineffable Truth to proc. Nazem could fall. The Golden Guardians assert dominance here in game number 4, and it's match point. The Ron Paul stunned up his entire team in a dire situation. Cataclysm connects. Shadow Fury to follow it up. Abster's lobbing out Bad Men or Lightning Bolts, even trying to close this game out. The Ron Paul gates into the room at such low health, barely clutching the Divine Favor. Nazem gates back to his side. Idiot Feral gets back. It's a full retreat for RSG.
Yeah, they're gonna retreat back to the room, but they should recover with the last couple of seconds there on those wings. Absturge running in, actually tanking a Hammer of Justice already before PK is even out of stealth. So a very, very good situation here for the Golden Guardians. They can feel confident to push into that room now. You see Absturge doesn't have to worry about any crowd control. Infernal stun is going to come out from WizK. Big pressure here, but a counter Infernal stun coming out from Nazem. He's going for the first Chaos Bolt. It's going to connect into the grounding totem. Now WizK popping his Dark Soul. This could be huge trouble. This could just be the game here. Ron Paul getting Garrote Silence, bopping himself and just dying on the global right there. Huge push from the Golden Guardians.
Dude, there's literally 3 Infernals down right now. 3 Infernals just destroying the entire team.
Oh, man.
That's crazy.